Hey, everybody, this is Jimmy. Welcome back to another episode of our Meet the Candidates series. My candidate right now, my guest right now, he and I go way back here in the city of Cambridge, back to the Cambridge Y, a lot of basketball and other things, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to the show a candidate for re-election to the Cambridge School Committee, the one and only Mr. Richard Harding. How you doing, Richard?
I'm good, Jimmy. Thanks for having me, and thanks for your crew to getting me all set up. I look forward to our conversation today about the Cambridge Public Schools and education.
Me too, my friend. Me too. So for those of you who don't know you, Richard, just give us a little background on yourself, your experience, who you are and why you're running for re-election for the Cambridge School Committee.
Yes, thank you. I'm a born and raised Cambridgian, went to the public schools, including the Kennedy and CRLS, and then on to Fitchburg State University. I've worked in the youth centers. I've started nonprofits. I'm a small business entrepreneur, as well as a public health professional of 24 years. I'm running for the school committee because I believe that my leadership and effectiveness can be helpful to make Cambridge not only a good public school system, but a great public school system. And in order to do that, we must make sure that we're educating all of our kids to the best of not only their ability, but setting them up for success to be viable and successful people in the 21st century economy. I was on the school committee before for some time. I took a couple years off to start a small business, and now I'm back running for re-election as I ran last time and won by a narrow margin. And now I'm looking forward to continuing the great work that I think I've been doing on the Cambridge School Committee.
Great. So tell me, Richard, as a veteran of the school committee, what are we doing well in the Cambridge Public Schools, and what do we need work in? What would you like to improve in?
Yeah, so we have an embarrassment of riches and resources. We are a well-resourced district. I think that some of the things that we began to work on now, like really looking in a real way at teacher evaluations, looking at student achievement, and looking at how we run our schools and make sure that they're user-friendly to the public are some of the things that we're starting to do well. The things that we need work on are real. And I think, Jimmy, to be fair to you, this is what my passion is, really looking at these academic achievement gaps where kids in some places failing miserably in the Cambridge Public Schools, looking at evaluating excellent instruction in every classroom, measured by student achievement, of course, looking at how we spend $41,000 per pupil, probably the most in the state, maybe the most in the planet, on a public school system to make sure that each and every kid gets the best public school education they possibly can get in an environment in Cambridge where we have an enormous amount of riches, we have talent and treasure. Jimmy, we live in the most innovative square mile in the world, but unfortunately a kid who's 12-year-old in Mumbai probably has a better chance in working in Kendall Square than some of our kids because, in my estimation, we're not preparing our kids for the STEM and life sciences that are right here in our backyard. I think that one thing that I hope to really hone in on is making sure that our new superintendent really understands the dire situation that we have at some schools. You're going to see this week, Jimmy, the MCAS come out publicly. I think it was actually last week. But the reality of it is that in one school, right, 94% of the kids who are Black and brown and maybe poor are not at the basic level, right? This is a indictment on our public school system. It's a school system that in some ways has a lot of greatness to offer, and some kids do access that, but many, many kids, Jimmy, are feeling the pain of a inadequate school system, and I think that that ought to change.
Yeah. Richard, do you have any particular ideas you'd like to implement? Are you finding any camaraderie on the school committee that's on the same page with you are? I know the achievement gap for decades has been huge and it's narrowing. It's not where everybody wants it to be. But are there some things, like I was talking to a couple of candidates, they were talking about, maybe a better student-teacher ratio in the classroom. They were talking about accountability like you are, the superintendent. I think the interim superintendent was just reelected. Is that correct?
Yes, he was just appointed last evening as the permanent superintendent, pending we can come together on a contract, which I'm sure we will.
Yeah. So are there some specific things you would like to see done that aren't being done?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head around evaluation and accountability. Look, in a school system such as ours, we ought to make sure that every year we're evaluating our classroom instructors, teachers, classroom aides, and everybody, quite frankly. I think that that's something that the educators would want, and it's something that the school committee on par has failed to do. I think that in order to really have effective classroom instruction, you not only have to support teachers with the right professional development, with the access to high quality curriculum, but you have to make sure that they're honing in on their tasks and they're being the best practitioners they can be. Teaching is a very hard profession. However, the stakes are equally as hard for the kids who, in some cases, aren't getting what they need and aren't seeing academic success. So yes, accountability through teacher evaluations that are meaningful. I hope to make sure that that's something that's on the priority dashboard for the school committee. Making sure that children and families have the supports necessary and understand from a parental expectation what is expected of you to support your child. I think oftentimes parents want to do the right things by their kids, but the school system, because it's not as user-friendly as it could be, doesn't allow them or doesn't help them along in how to support their kid. I think we have to make sure that we're creating and maintaining the algebra pathway, right? To make sure that algebra is accessible by or before the 8th grade so that kids can really have a true chance at making sure they can have their math and science foundation ready for whatever the next thing they plan to do is, as well as really, Jimmy, looking at our vocational program, right? I often say my carpenter friends and my electrician friends are doing extremely well. You know, in your day, the Ringe Tech folks knew how to work with their hands and were skilled people who could start their own business and really be a productive member of the workforce. And I think that our Ringe School of Technical Arts is a jewel that we're not taking advantage of. And I think many kids, some who for college is not the option, Ringe School of Technical Arts is a place where they could get the foundational skills to be able to be builders and welders and plumbers and electricians. And I think that's something we ought to look in at. And then not last but not least, Jimmy, understanding how we have to get rid of some programs that have been ineffective and creating new programs or sustaining programs that have been effective. We need to also change the culture within the public schools, right? You have to have a culture of excellence. Excellence is the bar all the time, and we can't ever have a low aim or low expectations. That's where dreams go to die. For my money, I would simply say that the Cambridge Public Schools is a good public school system that could be great.
Tell me, one of the things that one of the other candidates mentioned, I wasn't aware of it. Remember back in the day when I think you were at the Roberts, I was at the Longfellow. Did you go to Roberts?
Went to Roberts for a short time, then the Kennedy.
Okay. So I went to Longfellow, but early on, if you weren't up to, par in reading or math, people got kept back. And I know that's been frowned upon these days, but should we be promoting? Other candidates for school committee have mentioned that people are being promoted and maybe not ready to go to the next level, and that one teacher might be dealing with several grade levels in the same class.
Yeah.
Do you see that as an issue?
I'll hit the first one. So the second one, differentiated instruction is very hard to do. Oftentimes people roll it off their tongue as if it's an easy thing. It's very hard for any teacher, particularly teachers who aren't trained or don't have the professional development and other supports, to be able to teach a kid who's 3 grade levels behind in a subject or 2 levels ahead. Nevertheless, having that grouping of kids in one classroom is a very difficult task, and it's very hard to do. So yes, this is exactly why I'm looking to support and maintain the professional development that's meaningful and relevant to teachers. We also have to understand that within those grade levels of ability, that sometimes you only have one teacher and an aide in the class, and there may need to be more resources in the classroom to help to make sure that each kid gets what they want. On one end, you have kids that are bored, Jimmy, because they're not getting what they need. And on the other end, you have kids that are suffering because they're so far behind. If you're not able to read at grade level by or about grade 3, you often don't find success, because that is the time where from 0 to 3, you're learning to read, but from 3 on, you're reading to learn and comprehend and critically think, right? So yes, we have to make sure that we are setting the foundational skills up so that kids can be proficient in their studies. I think we also just need to talk about social promotion. I do not believe in the concept of social promotion, mainly because what you're doing is setting kids up at the end of their educational road when they're not in a safe, learning environment, when they're out in the very cruel world with an economy that is tougher and tougher and tougher to crack to our young professionals, you're setting them up for failure. It is not an indictment on a young person who may need some more time or may need to be kept back just so that they can get up to speed. I actually think that if you talk to people and parents who've kept their kids back, they absolutely would do it again if the circumstances arose again. So the notion of virtual signaling and promoting a kid just because they want to be with the guy they played Little League with is a stupid idea in my estimation.
And just define social promotion just for the
Well,
audience.
I would just say social promotion is promoting cohorts of students with, let's say, their age appropriate or class appropriate cohort. So Jimmy and I are both 7th graders. If one of us wasn't able to read at a basic level or compute at a basic level or meet the standards that are necessary to move on to the next grade, they may move us on anyway, just so that socially we don't feel awkward and socially we don't become a stigmatized group of kids.
Right.
That's my
Thanks for
layman's explanation to me. That's not
No,
Webster.
no. Thank you. Well, they changed it. I don't think the Webster school's there anymore anyway.
No.
So, Richard, have you been endorsed by any organizations, any of the Cambridge,
Yeah, I've been endorsed by the CCC and a couple of other groups. There's some endorsements that are still in the air, but I want to say about endorsements, Jimmy, is this. I want to be endorsed by the children and families and the people in Cambridge who believe, like I believe, that excellence is possible in the Cambridge public schools. I want to be endorsed by the young people who need a fighter for them when they can't fight for themselves, when the school system is neglecting their needs. I want to be endorsed by people who believe, like me, that the Cambridge Public Schools, with all of its resources, both internally, externally, the treasure and talent that we have with our kids and our teachers, that they believe, like me, that we can serve all kids. Endorsements do matter in politics. I do not want to downplay them. But what's most important to me is that the people that I go to represent each and every day understand and trust me to carry them with me to the school committee and advocate for the needs that they have for their children, for the community, and obviously for the taxpayers who are funding a school system where most of the people, Jimmy, who I meet and knock on doors, do not have a kid in the public schools. That's the only endorsement I want. And I think that endorsement should ring loud when you vote for Richard Harding, #1, on November 4th in this election.
Great. Anything else you want to tell us about yourself, Richard? We're coming up to the got a couple of minutes left, and anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah. So
Or that
look,
I left.
I'm a entrepreneur. I'm a social activist. I'm a civil rights leader, as well as a public health professional. But most importantly, I'm a proud parent of a daughter who went through the Cambridge Public Schools and had a successful time there. I think that what I want all of us as a community to do is come out November 4th and exercise your democratic right to vote. I hope that you vote for me, Richard Harding, #1. Let's be clear. But I also want you to participate in this government. This democracy that we have is being threatened in many different ways. And I just would hope that everybody would come out and vote, hopefully for me, but for the candidate of your choice. I'd also want to say that there are some real challenges facing the Cambridge Public Schools and that elections have consequences, right? We're going to have the challenge of AI and making sure that we have some integrity of our AI policy, both for instructors and for students. We're going to have some pullback of the resources on the city side. So the resources that we've seen to be always and ever flowing, there's going to be a little bit of pullback. We're going to have to make some hard decisions. And most importantly, we're going to have a school committee that holds a new superintendent and the professionals in the Cambridge Public Schools accountable to the children they serve. And to do that, you need to have leaders like me who are unafraid to speak truth to power and always, always, always will tell you the truth as I see it from where I sit as a school committee member. And I just want to thank those of you who over the time have supported me in my endeavor to be a school committee and a community leader. So thank you. And thank you, Jimmy Tingle, for hosting this.
It's my pleasure. Just one follow-up question. Did you endorse the new superintendent? Did you vote for him?
I did. And I voted for the superintendent because I believe that there's no insignificant moments in a student's life. And I believe that in his short time as an interim, he has shown that he's not only honest, but he's willing to be a problem solver and really have the honest and frank conversations with solutions to fix some of the problems we have in the Cambridge Public Schools. I was not ready to take a chance on somebody who may have to learn the whole game again. I needed someone who could start day one and work on the problems that we have, understanding the unique resources that Cambridge has as a district. So I proudly supported Dave Murphy. I think that in due time, we will see that he was the right person for the right moment in our history. I'd also just simply say, look, he has a tall task. It is not going to be easy for him. And he knows this because we speak frankly to each other, that I will hold him just as accountable as anybody else to the kids of the Cambridge Public Schools. And so I look forward to working with him and making sure that he does the right thing by all of our children.
Thank you, Richard Hardy, for joining us today. Good luck in your re-election campaign for Cambridge School Committee. Hope to see you on the campaign trail. Wishing you the best of luck on November 4th. You know where you can find him, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Hardy for Cambridge School Committee. Thank you.